Alright, I'm going to show you how to set up a Foundry D&D campaign from scratch. So here I am in my game worlds on Foundry. I'm hosting on AWS. I find that's the smoothest place to host your game. So down here I'm going to create world. I'm going to make this, because this is actually a campaign that I'm going to be doing in the future, so I thought I would just make it as I go and show you guys how I do it. So, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, D&D 5th edition. I have a background image, which, I haven't uploaded yet, so that's something I can do later. Fill in the background image. This is for when people, log in. They have a nice picture instead of the gray screen. But with AWS, I need to upload the file first before I do that. So put a little blurb in here. That way when they log in, they'll have not only the picture, they'll have a description of the game. Okay, so Shadow of the Dragon Queen, launch world. Again, there'll be like a picture back there when I set it up. There's the description I put in. Game Master, the default password is just blank. Recommend obviously putting in a password once you actually add players and so on to it, but it is default to blank. All right, brand new server. One of the first things we want to set up is the settings for the core and the D&D. So core, permissions tab. I always have my players as trusted players. It's just a lot easier. There's no real need to have two tiers in my opinion. But things you want to turn on is create new actors, create new items. A lot of times if you're in a game and you don't actually have an item made, they can just make their own item. Makes it a lot easier. Create new tokens. This is also a good thing for making your spells like spiritual weapons, stuff like that. If you don't have that on, it won't run properly. Delete tokens. That's if they have a pet and so on that they only want to have out during combat. It's a good idea to allow them to delete it. Sometimes they delete things by mistake, but it's easy to get back. Display mouse cursor. What a terrible idea, Foundry. That was awful. Annoying as heck. Do not allow them to modify configure settings. This is not for their personal settings. This is for the settings for everything. You turn that on and they can actually change the DM settings on things. So terrible idea. Upload new files, yes, and the reason is for people uploading their own pictures and stuff like that, or avatar. So pretty much it's everything turned on except the display mouse cursor and modify configure settings. Don't need that. Configure default settings, token settings. This is when you put a token on the screen or whatever, what it defaults to. I have of late put this hovered by owner. I like the players to have hovered by anyone, but hovered by owner so you don't give away the monsters. Actually, they see it in the combat tracker all the time, so it doesn't really matter. So resources, I always have hovered by anyone as well. The reason is in previous games, I couldn't stand always answering the question of the players, how hurt does it look? Well, now you can just hover over it and you can see. I like it hovered instead of always, just because you can see the token better and not just a bunch of green health bars all over the map, which is a little distracting, I find. Vision, I like to have vision enabled. That's just so when you're a monster and you want to see if they can actually see the players or whatever, if you have that turned on, it'll actually treat it like a player icon. If you have it turned off, then you always see the screen all the time. It's a little bit harder to judge. Okay, so that is the tokens. You don't want this sound panda token speaker. That means it goes to whatever the token that's speaking. It's kind of annoying when someone's chatting away. Scrolling text, these are all good. Don't think there's anything else on that. hit save changes. It's always a good idea to hit save changes on each time, each add-on you set up or whatever, because if there's a refresh that needs to do after the setup, anything you've done after whatever that required a reset won't save. So if you go and add add-ons, which I'll do in a moment, add a bunch of add-ons and set all the settings how you like it and hit save, it'll only remember up to the first item that you chose that needed a refresh. Okay, D&D 5th edition. Honestly, initiative dexterity tiebreaker is one of the only things I put on because it's just handy. It's just using whoever has the highest dex wins in a tie. Allow polymorphing. What a great feature Foundry put in. That's just such an amazing feature. And as far as experience tracking, it really this is if you're using a milestone or you're not. I actually don't know yet if I'm going to be doing milestone or XP for Dragon, so I'm just going to leave this on for now. And then I'll find out later. Okay, save changes. Now let's add some modules. I use quite a lot of modules, so let's just start the top from the bottom here. We have about time. This helps you keep track, or helps the automations keep track of how long spells last and so on. Active token effects, active auras. A lot of these are really actually things that other add-ons use to make the nice animations and the automations. Advanced macros, advanced spell effects. These are all the things that this one requires. Also a great add-on. Always hit points. Ambient doors, just because I like to make I was so annoyed when I first started Foundry and found that the doors didn't make noise when you open and close them. So I won't turn on Angela's maps yet. Angela's maps is, in my opinion, one of the best map makers for Foundry. She does amazing work. Automated animations. Companion manager. This helps you if a person has a pet or a familiar or a summoned creature, they can tie it right to their character. It makes it really nice. Word XP, again, I don't know if it's going to be an XP adventure or not, so for right now I'll turn that on. Turn marker. Honestly, the only thing I use this for, I'll get into when I get into the settings, is the recent actions part. The rest of it is actually done by Monk's Little Details that I like. Combat enhancements. That's for your combat tracker. Combat utility belt. The only thing I use this for is if it's an XP adventure at the end of the combat, you can award XP and it auto calculates. It's honestly the only thing I use it for. Everything else in here I use different add-ons. D&D bond importer, obviously to import people's characters. DF architect and curvy walls are good for setting up your maps. Making the walls a lot easier. I've made a few maps in my time. Settings clarify. What that does is add a little globe or a purple person next to settings to say whether it's something that happens for the entire campaign or if it's just for individual settings. DF convenient effects. I really like these effects. I like it better than the DAE stuff. And this is how to turn the effects on. Dice are nice. How can you live without it? Dice tray, drag ruler, and the D&D 5e version of it. I still use, obviously, dynamic active effects because it still does a lot of really good things. Easy target, because you need a fifth way to target people. Actually, I just find it easy to alt-left click. That's all it does, is alt-left click for target, and I just find that easier. Dice set, why not? Mount up. It's an add-on that is a little buggy, I won't lie, but when it works, it's great because it allows you to actually use mounts. You move the mount and the person moves with, but it's definitely has some issues to it. Effects Master, that's like a filter you can put on maps, like make it look underwater or cloudy or something like that. Hotbar uses, all this does is when you put something in the hotbar, especially if this is for more for players, it shows you how many uses you have. So it's a nice little handy reminder of, oh, I had this many key points or this many bardic inspirations. Initiative quick change. Of course, this is allows you to change people's initiative. That you would think that it would be default, like there would actually be a Foundry default, but it is not. Okay, item containers allows people to put things in containers, though it is a little buggy because the software doesn't know what's in the container. So if you put arrows in a quiver, your bow, you can't like attach the arrows to the bow that you're using. Also, if you try to drag it from the container onto the map with item piles, it'll just disappear. So again, little buggy, but I know a lot of players like it to help keep their inventory organized. Item macros used for other add-ons use it. Item piles, an amazing add-on that not only does it allow you to put items on the ground, which is odd that you can't do that. It also allows some really nice vendors, so you can use vendors with that. Some free animations, more dice. Maestro. One of the only things I use Maestro for is just combat music. You can attach music to different items and characters and monsters and stuff like that. So it is a pretty cool, add-on. Magic items, that just it allows you to actually set up magic items a little bit more in detail than what D&D Beyond Importer does. You know, you can attach spells to scrolls, things like that. MIDI QOL, that is a beast. I can't imagine using Foundry without it. I love the automations for it. I couldn't do without that. SRD, those are just some items. Another big one is Monk's Little Details. It does a bunch of little things, like it says, little quality of life things. Stuff that MIDI QOL doesn't quite cover. Moonlight Maps also an all right. He does decent maps. I still think Angela's is better, but sometimes you need a variety of maps. More automated spells. They're not updated very well, and you can see it's version 9. Because some of the things in there work, some don't. I know like the Stone's Endurance from Goliath and so on and work nice, but I just have it there as a backup to see if MIDI QOL doesn't have the items that I want. Plutonium, an absolute beast. You will not find this on the Foundry add-on list because it's questionably legal. Legal is kind of too strong of a word. But what it is it has all the books that you can import your adventures and monsters from and stuff like that. But it doesn't check to see if you've bought it or not. There's no gating system like D&D Beyond has. So that's why it's, if you can download something that you haven't actually purchased. So that would be pirating. So what they're doing is assuming that you are actually have purchased the item that you're downloading from. Polyglot, allows you to speak in different languages and stuff like that. It's a handy little tool. Pop out, a lot of players can't do without it. I find it a little annoying, to be honest, just because there's a lot of things that if your character sheet's popped out, some of the actions and so on don't work. Um, but I don't know if there's a way around it. I just wish there was a in Foundry way of actually using this properly. Like if they could code it, because whatever they code is damn good. So I mean, look what they did with pings, right? Something simple, but they just made it so much better. Honestly, this is just like a little PDF that because WotC doesn't understand that we want magic item prices. They just don't get it. So here's a list of sane magic item prices. You know, Paizo's already understood. They put prices to everything, so why WotC can't, I'm not entirely sure. Sound effects library. Technically, you don't actually need to turn it on, but it's handy little sound effects because I've added a lot of sounds to my fireballs and lightning bolts and, you know, and rages and stuff like that. So this is where I get some of the sounds from. Stairways, again, um, this should be built into Foundry in my opinion. A way to teleport players from the different maps. Uh, Another dice set. Tidy UI game session. That just makes it a little nicer. It's easier to uh, your game settings and so on, your menu a lot better. Tidy sheets, much better sheet in my opinion than the default. Token magic effects, just other add-ons use it. Tokenizer, which is a nice little thing that helps players and yourself make little tokens out of your avatar. This is just for my great add-on, but it's for my tougher campaign, the gritty realism campaign. Zoom pan options, something simple that honestly, again, I don't know why Foundry hasn't built this in. It just allows you to zoom in wherever your mouse is and pointing instead of right in the middle. You'd think that would be worked into it. It's not. Okay, save module settings, refresh. Okay, now we get to go through the individual settings that we, for the modules that we set up. Because unfortunately, the defaults for a lot of them aren't great. About time, nothing to do there. Active token effects, nothing. Active auras. Um, where's the one I want to change? Auras in combat. It's weird. It talks about it how, it should automatically be turned this on. It even says it in there, but it doesn't have it defaulted. So does that make any sense? Okay, so because I made a change, I need to do save changes just in case it refreshes. I don't remember all the ones that do need refreshing, to be honest. So that's why I just do it out of practice after every one that I change. Always hit points. That's a little add-on that pops up that allows you to adjust people's hit points quickly. Adding, subtracting, things like that. And it's only really needed for DMs. It defaults to everyone. And I remember players like, what's this in my middle of my screen? No. So GM only. This one, I do remember it requires a refresh. And then, unfortunately, after refresh, it doesn't remember where you were last. So ambient doors, nothing to change. Automated animations. The default ones are cool. I'm not going to get into it, but I have added a whole bunch of other animations in here and added sounds and so on. I really like the sounds when you add them to Fireball. It makes a big explosion. So what you can do, by the way, is get a file that get a file made of your add-ons or your settings, and you can even give it to other players and so on. But they would, I can't give you mine because mine points towards sounds that wouldn't be on your server or on your computer that way. But I've spent a lot of time in here. Really, in my opinion, it really enhances the game, especially the sounds. I find it really helps. But anyway, I can go on like an hour in that area just to set things up. Again, save changes. Companion manager, the only thing I changed is store companion on actor. Again, another one I don't understand why it's not defaulted on. That just makes it so the companions are attached to the individual character that was made instead of the user. So that way I can set it up for other players. If you don't have that on and you add a companion to a player's character sheet, it won't show up for them because it defaults to the user, me, not to the actor. So that's an important one. Award XP, that's fine again if I need it. Okay, so combat booster. I don't use any of this stuff because Monk's Little Details does a lot of this, and I like theirs better. So honestly, I turn everything off. Um, Mark defeated well. There's like 3 different add-ons that do this, by the way. The one that I use is in MIDI QOL. Like Monk's Little Detail uses it. These use it. So if you have all your add-ons saying Mark defeated, you'll have like when someone dies, you'll have like 4 deaths put on top of them, and sometimes it's hard to find. Pan camera, all these things will actually be done by other add-ons, so it's unimportant. The only thing I use this for is the HUD and that's like a little quick thing where you right click on the icon. The last 4 things that you've done with that icon pop up. Makes the DMing a lot quicker when you have like 5 orcs and they're all hitting with a great axe. You just right click great axe instead of opening up the character sheet every time. So that all these things that this add-on could do, that's the only thing I use it for. Combat enhancements, I don't change any of those. Combat utility belt, the only thing I use this thing for is to enable the award XP if I'm using XP. That at the end of a combat will pop up, and then you can award XP to the players. Again, if I'm not using an XP game, I just remove the whole add-on. D&D Beyond importer, I pay him money, so I want to make sure that it's set up properly. You do have to get your Cobalt cookie put in there. He's got some, Mr. Primate's got some good videos and instructions of how to do this. And then if you subscribe to his Patreon, which I recommend, then I can just allow it, and that way it knows when I import like clerics and paladins, all the spells come in, all that type of stuff. So save that. And that's the only thing I need to do in D&D Beyond. DFR, nothing in there. Defreds. Where is it? Modify status effect. That's when you right click on an icon and go into the status effect. I like the defreds versions better, so I changed that to replace. I understand why this isn't default, but this is one that you'd want to do. You don't want to add that because otherwise you get like 30 different statuses that all do the same thing, which is unnecessary. So it's replaced. This one I believe refreshes. Yes, it does. Where was I? Defreds, effect panel. There's nothing in there I need. Dice So Nice. Well, I don't. That's an individual thing for that. Dice Tray, Dragular. I really wish they brought pathfinding back, to be honest. Players really like that, especially in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, where they removed it. So I know I've heard rumor that they're putting this into Foundry, which is great. But don't know when that will be. Maybe they'll add a Pathfinder. Who knows? As again, Foundry always, when they code things, they do a really good job. Easy target. Again, that's just makes you alt left click on a target. That's all it does. But I just find that's just my favorite way of targeting. So now on top, nothing to change there. Not there. Item containers. Here's a very important thing. Don't turn any of these on. Because if your spells and so on aren't working that you imported from D&D Beyond, most likely it's because you turned one of these things on. Just leave it alone. Do yourself a favor, leave it alone. Because I tried messing around with it, and it took me a while to figure out where the problem was. That's always interesting when you have as many add-ons as I do. When something goes wrong, trying to find out where the problem is. These are all libraries. Maestro, again, the only thing I really use it for is the combat tracker. So enable combat track, create combat playlist, pause other playlist sounds. Obviously this is for, so you're not having two songs going at the same time. Again, it can do a lot more things, and sometimes I use it. Every once in a while, I'll add it to a player's icon or whatever, but not very often. So what that did too was added a combat track in your playlist where you can add something to it, and then when you do add it in the combat encounters, you'll have to change it in here where there's a little music symbol here, and this is where you would put your default combat music in. And you do it before you actually start combat, because otherwise it won't remember. It'll only play it for that one combat that you just had. So you do it when it's not playing. Also, in your combat trackers, I use both skip defeated and hide defeated. Makes things a lot smoother when you're running a combat. All right, back to here. Magic items, nothing. MIDI QL, a whole bunch. A lot of things to set up in here. If you're having problems with some sort of animation and don't know why, it's probably in here somewhere. Okay. Fast forward ability rolls I turn on. I like as much automation as possible. One of the things that my games are known for is game flow, so the speed of the game. And a lot of these automations help with the speed of the game. Players control own hidden tokens. That needs to be turned on. I don't think there's anything else in that. I'll save, because it does want to reload before going into the meat of the configure settings, or the MIDI QOL, because there's a lot in here. Okay, so workflow settings. The first thing I do is I go into quick settings, and I do full automation, as few buttons pressed as possible. Sets all these. And there's still more I want to set. GM, auto roll damage always. Don't understand that. Damage roll when needed. Again, every time, even with these tabs, anytime that you change something, you'll want to hit save settings, because if you go in there and change all of these and hit save settings, it'll only remember some of them. Players don't need to change their workflow. I like this one, roll a separate attack per target. That's when if you're doing like, your twinned, chaos orb or something. So you target two of them. Saves. Search item description. This allows it to, if it's half or none. However, the default is half, which is weird. So that means if you have a wolf that, has a strength DC to trip, and if you make that save by default, then because there's nothing in the description of the bite, it'll just give you half damage on the wolf's bite, which is wrong. So I change this to full, and then I will make sure to change it in the individual abilities, whether it's half or none for, or full damage on a save or half damage on a save. Okay, prompt player to roll saves. The reason why I don't use let me roll that for you is because there's no choice. Like when you have to make a saving throw, you have to make it. There's no, well, I'm not going to, I'm going to choose to do a different saving throw. No. So why give the players the option to just click a button? It also slows the game down. So there's no reason to prompt players to click on the concentration save and all the other saves that they have to roll. So I just set that to none. Times out to 30. see what else. I changed to non-spells do non-magical damage, just because there's special abilities in there that require that shouldn't be magical damage. You know, like sneak attack and things like that. So I want to make sure that it doesn't do magical damage. Both spells do. I turn this off only because it sometimes rolls the other damage regardless, and I find that kind of annoying when it's like, why did that monster just do that much damage? So, and I haven't researched enough to find out why sometimes it works and sometimes doesn't. Okay, so I finished the workflow. I'm going to hit save, go back in here, go into concentration, nothing to change here. Reactions, show champ prompt for reactions. I would like to always know why my game is paused. That just puts a little chat window in there saying, you know, so-and-so is prompt to use a reaction. I don't use this. I don't even understand why this is here. I'm sure there's a good reason, but I don't know it. Enforce reactions. I say all for all of these and attacks of opportunity. This just reminds players that, hey, you've already used your reaction. Helps the DM too, to remember, you know, which monster has already used his attack of opportunity. Save. Miscellaneous. Wow, look at all the settings. I like the sounds, so I turn that on. This is a weird bug. Let me show you the weird bug. If I turn these things off, they don't like to keep the logs, and then I turn that on, it turns these back on. Odd bug, but there it is. And we'll get back into that in a moment. So, because that allows you to make the custom sounds for attacking and stuff. Okay, back to mechanics. This is where when I talked about the adding the, you know, defeated attack, or when a monster goes to 0, who adds the death. This is the one that I use is from the MIDI QOL. Wounded, there's no reason to use wounded. We're not 4th edition D&D, so I zero that out. And the rest I don't change. Rules. I don't think there's... I'm one of the few DMs that don't use flanking. Sorry, but there's already enough ways to get advantage and disadvantage. You don't need yet another one. But that is where you would put it if you do use it in your game, and most people I know do. And I don't think there's anything else in there I need. So then I go into the custom sounds. The first thing you want to do is go into your quick settings, create the playlist. What that does is in here now it creates the playlist of the sounds, bow shot, all that kind of stuff. Then you want to make a basic settings. When you go back in here, you'll see all the actual sounds attached to whatever. Of course, you can do more in here as well, but this is where it sets up. I changed the dice to make no sounds because dice and dice already makes a sound. So this is unnecessary. And then there's no save button, so it automatically saves. Okay, that is MIDI QOL. A big one, I know. Okay, so moving on. Monk's Little Details. Wow, one big one to another. So many things in here. Let's see. Oh, by the way, you see the global GM only and the per user one? That was what the DF... no, not the... Where is it now? Good job, Darren. Oh, I can't remember now. But anyway, one of these things show... I think, is it tidy? No. I'm sure it's defreds. Huh. I know I talked about it earlier in the video about how it adds a GM only. So this is for global and this is for per user. So this is on the individual basis. I do like the large size. It really shows people, you know, hey, you're next. One of the things I don't need the next turn signals or the current turn sounds. I don't need them because my monsters come up all the time, so you don't need to hear that sound all the time. I'm not a fan of the default sounds for next turn and current turn, because then players think when it's, their player's next and they hear that sound, they think it's their turn and they start, doing their turn when it's actually somebody else's. So I have changed it to a sound that just actually says "you're next." It's a very angry lady saying "you're next." So there's no mistaking that it's not your turn. It's, you're next, and that does help players get ready for their turn, so it doesn't slow the game down when the players that are obviously alt tabbing and not paying attention to the game and playing solitaire and Facebook or whatnot. And it's their turn, and they look at they're slowing the entire game now because they have no idea what's going on. This reminds them that their turn's coming next, so they can actually maybe take a look to see what's going on before it's their turn and speed up the game a little bit. And then the current turn, I just have a little boxing bell that rings. Nothing wrong with a new round sound. These things are on a per user basis. Why? Remember, previous is defaulted to on. I've turned it off long ago. I don't know, but it was such an annoying feature that's defaulted on. Don't know why anyone would want to use that. And the clear targets after turn, make sure that's turned on. I don't know how that got turned off. Panda Combatant, want that to be on for sure. Move the pause button icon up. That changes I don't have it on right now, but the pause button to be actually more in the middle, because DMs forget to turn it off a lot of the time because it's kind of out of view. And so the players are like, the game's paused. That's a terrible color for a blood splatter, in my opinion. That is too bright. And so I found a blood color that I like, and it's also easy to remember. 880808. It doesn't change the color right at that point. It changes it later on when you save it. But I just find that blood's not that color. It's like some pastel. There's a lot of things you can do in here, but I'm just showing you the things that I have changed on it. Okay, so save changes. This will refresh. Wrong one. Okay, I think, no, that's not quite it. Polyglot, pop out sequencer, simple calendar. It defaults to open on load, by the way, and that's for players too. You'll want to turn that off. Obviously, I turned mine off a long time ago. That just, you don't need the calendar popping up all the time. Tidy sheet. Here is where you would change it from either dark or light for your character sheets. It defaults to light. I just prefer dark. And there is nothing else out of all these ones that needs to change. So that is it. Your game is set up. Now you have to either create your own campaign or import it from either D&D Beyond or Plutonium. I myself am going to be using the Plutonium to import the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen game that I'll be running in a couple of weeks. I just find the Plutonium's adventures a lot cleaner than the D&D Beyond's their importer. All right, well, thanks. I know this is a long one, but setting up a new campaign can take some time. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.